Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm here actually to tell the same thing twice. First, I'm borrowing a person who lived 2,500 years ago called Confucius. And he said, if you hear something, you forget it. If you see something, you remember. If you do something, you learn it. And now I'm trying to say it in my own words. So that's the thing, if you don't remember anything else from this lecture, just remember that. It's a good thing to remember. So I've been teaching now 20 years architecture. So I have two hats, architect and professor. And I've been noticing that the students have learned best if we make things together and make other words. And we could remember also that the word poetry comes from the Greek word poesis, which means making. So it's nothing airy or mystical. It is making things, making even poems. And the demystifying effect that this making helps us to understand the world around us as well and have kind of empower us to be participants of the world, not just viewers of it. We are arguably living in an age which is very full of images and information that comes in the form of text and images and films. And we less and less use the rest of our senses to experience the world. One of my teaching jobs I remember very well was some years ago. I was taking 11-year-old school kids to forest, and I said that you can use anything you find in this forest to make artwork for animals, not for human beings. And one girl was, all of the works were brilliant. One girl was taking a small birch tree about this size. She was herself the same size. And she had hung small swings on the branches of the tree. And she said, the birds must be a bit bored by just sitting on the branches. Why not to make small swings for them? And I think these kind of observations of everyday things that we have around and making new collages of them is typical for children. They are playing together and finding things. And we miss it a little bit when we grow up. We become professionals and serious. So we should play still. Another way of learning is also taking risks and even breaking rules. And this guy here, the Russian guy, he built a house alone for 15 years until it was 50 meters high. I'm not saying that we should do the same because he went to jail for this. He didn't have a building permission. As an architect, I don't recommend this, but as a way of seeing how much power we have in us if we really want something. And also, if you look at other walks of life and investigations and theories, even in anthropology, they are the newest archaeological findings here are now backing up a theory that there used to be different kind of civilizations and cultures that were, the ideas were wasted, they were not used. And in a way we are kind of stuck into one way of doing things in our civilization, especially the Western civilization I talk about now. So we have become a bit of prisoners of our own success. Our technology is card-like, but we are still the Stone Age human beings with the same needs than we had before. And one way of expressing this could be to make a comparison between language and architecture. Architecture is a way of building the structures, using local resources and making shelters for human beings in the local climate, in a local context, in short. And the same goes, what goes on with languages. If we look at past 100 years ago, there used to be around 60,000 languages on the planet. Today we have 6,000 languages left. 5,000 of them, majority is just 100,000 speakers or less. And now the estimate is that in 100 years we will have 1,000 languages left. And the same is true with architecture. We are borrowing ideas from other areas, other climates and other cultures, and we repeat them if you just look around. We make same kind of structures, and this is a bit dangerous. We are worried about biodiversity for a reason, but we should be worried about our own diversity as well. We can't make any more stuff for local conditions of the local raw materials. And this is the diversity we are losing. They estimate every 2 weeks dies a person who is the last representative of a certain kind of civilization with their own idea of the universe, own way of cooking, dancing, expressing themselves. So we are becoming a monoculture, unless we fight against it, is the word. So I like to make this comparison myself, that we become more like a desert culture instead of a forest culture as a kind of biodiversity. We are becoming an exclusive society instead of inclusive, in a way that forest, for instance, creates all kind of symbiosis between things, happenstances, while desert is kind of trying to minimalize things and simplify things. And the forest is a nice example in a way that where I come from is a Finnish culture or Nordic culture, let's say. We feel often that forest is a place where you can hide and be safe. Nobody knows that you are in a forest if you stay still and it's dark, you are totally safe. While in Western culture in general, the forest is a scary place where all kind of terrible things happen. So if you go there, there's murder and beasts and everything. So it's an interesting comparison there. Even in education for sustainability, so if you want to teach children how to be sustainable, the research shows that we need spaces where this sustainable education takes place first. You cannot teach sustainability in an unsustainable school, in other words. And even spaces for pluralism, diversity and minority perspectives, and even more space for counter-hegemonic thinking. So even being against the general rules and creating something else. So our tool in teaching has been the workshop method, and where we just go for 2 weeks with a group of students, design and build from scratch everything on site. And these things happen here. They get demystified, the idea of building, putting things together, and creating things themselves instead of just talking about it or drawing it. In the end, architect is a guy who tries to sell you a drawing of a house instead of the house you need. So I see that as a problem. It's not a good business idea otherwise. But yeah, so it's all about playing together. This is what I'm trying to say. So as it was mentioned, I already done 265 workshops around the world. So it's my kind of dearest way of teaching. And we use wood mostly because I call it the most democratic material. Of course, this is a Nordic perspective. But it's also because you don't need very expensive tools and you don't need outside energy, just your own body. And you can discuss while you work with these tools. That's also important. So you can shout the measures and say, that's wrong, or oh, fantastic detail. So. And wood is also a scaleless material. It can be everything from a spoon to a big multi-floor flat. So these are some of our designs. And it's also, in fact, good material because it is, when we talk about CO2, it's actually storing CO2. It's not making any CO2 to the atmosphere. So it's hands down the best material in that sense. And it's also hard material, so the amount of energy that goes to produce wood, it grows by itself. And its hardness, it's unbeatable material. Some people are still very critical about and suspicious about using wood. And I used to show these 2 examples. One is my rowing boat, which is 20 years old, which still floats. It's made of wood. And then the other one is 900 years old stave church that still stands there. Try that with concrete and steel. Couple of examples quickly. One nearby here on an island. So we studied with the students the way traditionally everywhere in the world, in the Arctic areas, the wooden architecture settlements have been set up. They always make several buildings, small buildings, and create microclimates in between so that people can actually be outside in the wind. And we did the same on Fleinvær Island here. Instead of making one building, big building, we create a series of buildings that we come there to build with students, one by one. And then finally you have a kind of place where you can live and work, using some traditional themes as well. And this is the typical scenery in the winter here in the dark and sad north. And another example is a floating sauna in a river in Estonia, which we also built up and then floated on the right spot with the students. And the idea is that you can swim and have sauna from the same room, so you can go straight down. This kind of small delights for all the senses that you can create in a 2 weeks' time from scratch with some pieces of wood, and then it stays there for 20 years for people to enjoy. Recycling is very important in building nowadays, so one small workshop with friends in the end in Northeast Iceland last June. You can see this workshop, by the way, from YouTube channel, which is on the screen here. We were given an old boathouse and some pieces of planks that were used to make the molding of the concrete in the boathouse. So we could use the pieces of wood to make a sauna inside the boathouse and open it up for public. So you have suddenly a warm place inside. And the workshop looks like this. This is my 3 colleagues from Scotland, Iceland and Japan that came together to make this work in 10 days' time, design and build it together, and having a lot of fun and learning a lot together, even though we are 50 plus, all of us. And then in the end I want to share this literature list to you about this theme if you are more interested in it. Especially Richard Sennett's Craftsman is very much of what I'm trying to say here, but also Juhani Pallasmaa's The Eyes of the Skin, which is about sensing the world with the rest, not just the eyes. Juhani Pallasmaa being my mentor from architecture school. Thank you for your attention.